Hello, beautiful people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with you today. My name is Elena Harder, and today we will be talking about what exactly is self-love. More importantly, how do you go about practicing it, and what happens when you do a self-love renovation, and what exactly is that, and how can we come out so much better on the other side for having dedicated ourselves to self-love. Today I'm going to be joined by Candice Bell of Self-Love Renovation, and this whole video is happening on behalf of and because of New Earth Online, which is an online marketplace for conscious businesses, conscious community, and conscious people to continually gain tools to up-level their conscious life and continue to evolve in their conscious life. So Candice will be joining us shortly, and in the moment, I'm gonna do some ohms with you guys. I'm super happy to see all the people that are here live and all the people who are here on the replay, and I'm really happy to be here today. Self-love is something, hi Steve! Been practicing for, I started pretty dedicatedly in 2013 because everything went boom in my life. It was a bit of a shit show, and I didn't feel like I really had a choice but to practice self-love. It was a pretty scary time in life, and what I say now is that everything that you want for your life is on the other side of learning to love yourself more. Unfortunately, a lot of us have been born into families, communities, and cultures where self-love is not something that's prioritized, where ourselves is often the person who's given the least priority in life, and we as a result end up as fairly challenged and sometimes damaged people as a result of that, which is sad. And so today we're going to be diving into all of those things. How exactly do we practice self-love? And I think today would be a great day to do some I love yous, because that was the original self-love practice that I had actually started with way back when. I just was like, I need something, and the origin of this practice comes from the Addams Family, for those of you who remember that from way back when in the 80s, 90s. Which was a show, and Gomez was so in love with Morticia that he would just grab her and be like, Morticia, my love. And he would just grab her and kiss her up and down the arms. And even as a young child, I was like, wow, like love like that. You know, my parents weren't affectionate in that way at all. So I didn't have any other role models. And when I was really starting to hold space for beloved, for wonderful partnership to come into my life, I said to myself, if I don't love myself that way, if I can't offer myself love on that kind of level, I'll never attract the kind of love that I really want to have. And so I started doing this practice. So I'm going to walk you guys through it today. If you're wearing long sleeves, I recommend taking your long sleeves off because skin to skin contact is amazing. Thank you to everybody who's here already live, and Candice should be joining us shortly. And so let's start with I love you. So it's really simple. It takes about 30 to 45 to a minute, depending on how long and how lingering you are with your kisses. And there we go. She's already there. We're welcoming Candice on. Welcome, Candice. Just technicals. There we go. She should. And so we just do some I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Love you. I 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 love you. And all the fingertips. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Candice. I love you.
Hello. Sorry, I've never done my camera sideways, so I'm just trying to get my whole face in there.
Yeah, it looks great to me.
Do you
Those of
see
you
my
guys
whole
who are
face like
watching,
this?
just some like thumbs up if it's looking good.
I only see half of my face, so I'm not.
Okay, well I can see all of you. Guys, can you just give us some
Good.
like thumbs up, hearts, loves if you can see all of Candice's face?
If not, half a face is still perfect.
This
You only
woman
need half.
clearly practices self-love. She's
Only
like,
need
if
half.
I'm only half on the video, it's fine.
It's the words that matter. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm just gonna pop up. I had a dog come into the room, and I'm gonna close my door because that means my door is not quite closed.
Perfect.
Come on. There we go. Self-love includes setting healthy boundaries.
Absolutely, very important. Sometimes hard to do, but we'll make it.
Yeah. Oh, Steve said he can see both of us, so that's great.
Perfect.
Perfect. That's what we want. Hey, Lisa, good to see you. Oh, I'm glad we've got a good people's on already.
I'm just going to actually share this to my woman empowerment group.
Go for it. Go for it. That sounds
Where are we
great.
going? Well, I'm so grateful to be here.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, we actually met through the internet. I was scrolling through Facebook and I found an event of yours and was like, oh, that's right up my alley. That's right up what I want to help share and bring more of in the world. And so super excited to see that. And
Oh, I'm so grateful. Everything happens for a reason, for sure.
you got it. You got it. So, can you tell me, like, I'm just meeting you here for the first time. Obviously, people who aren't part of your community are also meeting you here for the first time. Can you just give us a little bit of how did you get into this journey? How did you end up teaching about self-love renovation? How did all of that happen?
Absolutely. I'd love to. So, my name is Candice Bell. And for those who don't know me, I am the creator of the Self Love Renovation Women Empowerment Movement. And you're probably like, what is that? So, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then we can chat about the actual foundation that Self Love Renovation is in an entirety. So, about 4 years ago, I literally woke up one morning with an abscess in my throat and it had ruptured.
Oh,
And I went septic and it was really yucky and I almost died
oh my God.
and
I'm
it
so
created
sorry.
a hole in my throat. So I went to all these doctors and invasive like procedures because they couldn't find the pocket. The only reason they knew it was septic, obviously, was the testing of what had ruptured.
Yeah.
And I had the inability to eat, long story short, for 23 months. Now, during
Wow.
that time, about a year in, they had found stage 2 thyroid cancer. So immediately, all my symptoms were pushed towards the cancer, and it was, oh, you can't eat because of your gland and the cancer and all the mutation and all these things, which
Right.
me coming from a medical background was like, oh, that doesn't make much sense since your gland is exterior from your esophagus. It's not even in the same part of the body, long story short.
Yeah.
And so it was 23 months I ate tomato soup and protein shakes while they were trying to find this
Oh
pocket.
my God.
I had 4 surgeries, and on the third surgery, they lasered my tonsils out because they assumed the hole was in there, creating all this problem. And the surgeon actually cut another slit in the back of my throat with the laser and left it. So as I continued to go back to Western medicine,
God.
on my fourth surgeon, he was like, "Oh my God, you have a pocket the size of a toonie. Like this is why you can't eat your." And it was right adjacent to where your epiglottis lays down to protect your windpipe. So it was creating passage for food to go directly into my lungs. So and they didn't identify that till after my year battle with cancer. So not only did I have cancer, but I was extremely immune suppressed and malnutritioned because I was unable to nurture my body accordingly to really super boost my immune system to get better. So when I was sick, I was really sick.
Oh
Like
my
I
God.
couldn't even, I would choke on like anything. Like smoothies had to be strained because even a strawberry seed would put me in the hospital. Like it was nuts. It was the
Oh
most
my
like
God.
freak accident ever in the world. And then as I was sick, I obviously like I was a Reiki master prior to getting sick, and I always knew like the disease comes from an energetic and emotional block in the body and the energy, and really trying to identify where that illness was actually coming from. What trauma or experience or circumstance was I still carrying that created this blockage in the body? And as I worked with my body, I started to really source as much knowledge as possible to find ways to get better because clearly Western medicine had failed me.
Clearly, they left a hole in the back of your throat. Like a year, 23 months later, you're still not
Oh yeah, like
right. So many things. Like that
when they
story was
found my
just
cancer
mind-boggling.
originally, they told me it was anxiety. You have anxiety, like people get the frog in the throat. It's just anxiety. You're struggling with panic attacks. I had went through a separation from a long-term relationship. I had a daughter. I was transitioning on my own, and then I was sick. And then all of a sudden, the ultrasound tech was like, "No, I want that biopsied. Like, there's mutation."
Yeah.
And because it was so small at first, they don't usually, Western medicine again, has protocols where if it's not big enough yet,
Yeah,
so they allow cancer to grow in the body before it's by the tech person. And because I was so young, I'm 31 now, I was 27, and thyroid cancer is 1 in a million for anyone under 35. So they were like, no, no, no. And luckily this radiologist had pushed it, and I had went for the testing, and then everyone panicked because it was not only was it cancer, it was stage 2 mutation. And it went from, I don't know, a centimeter to 3.5 centimeters over 3 months. And thyroid cancer, if anyone knows anything about it, is supposed to be like they call, which disgusts me, the good cancer. It's never supposed
no
to spread.
cancer is good cancer in my books.
No.
Like, no cancer is good
No,
cancer.
right?
It speaks
Like, I
to
don't even
illness in
like
the
the
body
word.
and things that need to be resolved, straight up.
Yeah, straight up, word not allowed to be said in my house, you know. And what had happened was it's supposed to be isolated. It doesn't metastasize. It doesn't spread. It usually, actually, 72% of women have thyroid cancer and don't even know it. That's what they told me. So I was like, oh my God. And so immediately everyone was freaking out. And then of course, they go right, it's Western medicine. So the first thing they go to is radioion medications, which is a different type of radiation. And if you do research on thyroid cancer, it's actually caused by radiation. That's the only research they have on it. You know, I've had a lot of dental work, so it's commonly from like the dental x-rays and all these treatments. And before they had found the cancer, when they were trying to find the hole, I had back-to-back 7 CT scans, 6 MRIs, X-ray, like, you know, like a lot of radiation.
Yeah.
So I was like refusing it, and they're like, well, if you won't take it, we're putting your surgery off because you're not taking your health seriously. Well, clearly there's a pharmaceutical kickback to radiation, and everyone has their own opinion. But this is from my personal circumstance and experience that I express it from. And so I refused it. And then over the 6 months while I waited for surgery, it had been growing. So at that point, they're like, okay, we need to get it out. So they took half the thyroid and the mutation, and I got to keep the other half. And they said, you should be able to eat now, which I knew I wouldn't be able to because I was totally aware that it was never sourced or symptomatic from there, right? Like your esophagus is a totally different part of your body.
Yeah.
So then I continued to be an advocate and go to surgeons, and it was, you're crazy, you've lost it. They even had me eat in front of doctors because they thought I was lying, and immediately like aspirated into my lungs and had to have it, like, they're like, we don't know what the fuck's going on. Pardon my language, but it was just so, they had no idea.
Yeah. So how did you bring all of that to, like, how did that start resolving? Like, when did you go like, okay?
And so what happened was that it started to become, when Western medicine had failed me, that I knew the only way I was getting better is if I did it myself. Yeah. I knew the only way I was going to find the light was if I could source it. And because of my background, I knew it had to be energetic. I knew it had to be emotional. I went through a very traumatic childhood, like 99.9% of us, trauma is trauma. And, you know, looking back at my timeline, where does the trauma source from? Where is it coming from that's creating this disease in my body? And what it related to actually ended up being in my adult years. And mine was speaking my truth. Yeah. And if anyone that knows, cancer in the body in a metaphysical world is resentment. So we actually create cancer in the body is actually from anger, the vibration at an atomic level from resentment and anger. And because I wasn't speaking my truth, which is my throat chakra, yeah, I was completely blocked and shut off, and the energy was pooling.
Yeah, which links into what you said about 72% of women having like some form of throat thyroid
issue is speaking our truth.
It's just like speaking our truth straight up. Like there's just cultural suppression across the board.
Yeah. And a lot of us believe, oh, speaking my truth, like saying what I think or holding opinions back. And actually the biggest foundation to truth is self-acceptance. And what we don't realize is we miscommunicate the definition of truth. Oh, speaking my truth. Well, I don't lie, or I always tell the truth, or I always say what's on my mind, but do you? And is what you're speaking authentic to your belief system that is true to you? So a lot of it was I wasn't living on the foundation of my truth in many levels. I wasn't speaking my truth. I was holding a lot of resentment. I was walking a path that wasn't authentic to my beliefs or conditionings that I held in my soul. And I was moving forward in a manner that society said I had to,
Right.
instead of what I believed was true to me. When I started to reflect on that, and I started to see the sabotaging behaviors I had been creating, that, I wasn't really doing what I truly loved. I wasn't really doing what I really believed in. My belief systems, when I broke them down, each pillar, really recognized that 90% of them was a molding conditioning that I never actually believed in.
Yeah.
And I started to create my own story.
Mm.
What did I believe in? Where you are from is not who you are.
Right.
We must always reflect on our roots, because they will always be an experience and a circumstance that have built parts of us, but only we decide what defines us. And many of us believe that we're products of our childhood and don't own the power to rewrite the story.
Thank you.
So when I began to rewrite the story, I went back for 3 invasive tests that I had had before, the identical testing 3 times, and all of a sudden the pocket appeared.
It was gone.
Sure, like it like people are like, yeah, right. I'm like, what? On medically, all of a sudden they found it. They're like, oh, we don't know how we missed it. And the pocket was.
They literally couldn't see it before. Like,
no.
Wow.
No. And after 3 months of being like, and I work really closely with like Hay House. So like I'm a very strong believer, and not to undermine you, but I Love Myself exercise actually originates from Louise Hay in 1965. She created mirror work.
Yeah.
And that's where Addams Family, I love Addams Family, by the way. Actually, it might have integrated some of that.
Interesting. Addams Family picked it up from Louise Hay. I don't care where it came from. Just do it.
Right? Maybe not. I mean, we're all universal. Like they could have had the same awakening, the screenwriters, but that's where the actual metaphysical, like copywriting of the exercise itself, which we'll go into, which may be a little different from how you do it, is mirror work. And it's you really telling yourself every morning, looking into your eyes, into your soul, I love myself exactly just as I am. And I don't know if you or your audience is familiar with Louise Hay, but I had been gifted a book called You Can Heal Your Life, and really understanding the self-dialogue that you can reprogram the brain to create a vibration that actually sets an intention to change. Tomato soup, ready to just be like, if I didn't have a kid, I'd totally end it. Like, you come to a point where you're like, they blatantly told me that it was sustainable living, and some people just have to live with things, and that was my reality, and I wasn't accepting it as my reality. So every day, even in the moments that I was unable to eat, even in the moments when I thought I was going to die on my own secretions, like I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to choke to death on my own bodily fluids. Like this is absolutely insane. And I would tell myself every single day, my body restores itself to its natural state of well-being. I am healthy. I am happy. I can eat easily and effortlessly. And I wasn't even eating. And just really creating that ability to own the power to create my reality of tomorrow, because I was not accepting this to be my truth, and I was not accepting this to be my reality. I knew that I would be better, and I knew I needed to own the ability to create the space to be better. Oh no, you're frozen.
Oh no.
You're still there though?
Okay. I had a phone call come in. I gotta figure out how to not.
Okay.
Am I back?
I was like, oh my goodness, it's just her face. I'm like, Kate, well, energetically, we've already fried the system and we're off.
That's okay. We'll just keep going.
So that's a bit of my story. And what had happened from there was, when I really recognized the power that we actually hold within us to really be the author and to really harness the universe, and understand that through manifestation and intentional programming, we really can create our own reality, and understanding that we are every day self-sabotaging in a place of fear and self-doubt that is an ego mechanism to keep us safe from the unknown, creating that inability to experience the things that bring us joy or bring us passion or create our purpose, and really recognizing that through affirmations and through intention and working with vibrations, what the reality I was able to create and how I could share that with so many women that were stuck in different ways. Now, my story is quite unique, and my journey was definitely different from most, but we all have trauma and we all have circumstance and we all go through experience that really creates that space of feeling detached, feeling lost. Anxiety and depression is in 90% of our society is going through this epidemic where they have anxiety, they have depression, they're having these panic attacks where they're in the hospital because they feel like they're going into cardiac arrest, because we are living in a society overwhelmed with positive ions from all these electronics, instead of really grounding ourselves with the earth that projects negative ions, which sounds funny, but it is reversed. Negative ions are actually positive for the body and positive ions are actually negative for the body. And what's happened is we've become really detached from the inner knowing and that consciousness that gives us the control to be the author, that gives us the control to really set ourselves apart from this, I don't want to say sheep-like behavior, but sheep-like behavior when we do what we're told because we're conditioned that we can only live this way. And based on our stature, we can only go this far. We're limited. We're not worthy or deserving of these other things because we weren't born into this, or we've been through that, or we don't have the ability to do whatever we want. And that's complete crap, because we absolutely have the ability to do whatever we want. We just need to recognize that all the tools we need to create that reality, instead of seeking outer validation in this world of chaos, is really looking internally. And especially with social media being such a big part of our lives, we really lack that toolbox and are constantly looking for that validation outwards on what we can and cannot do and who we can and cannot be, wearing a mask to every different environment we go into, when really truly there should be no mask and the only validation should be our own.
Yeah, can we speak a little bit around that concept of masks? I remember being 15, 16 and sort of becoming aware that I was wearing all of these, I was this person to that person and this person to that person. And, there was a sense of having lost like who I really was because of all the masks. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, so my mask analogy and what I work really closely with my clients on is, so we're born with no mask. Okay. And when we're born, we are perfect and successful the moment we're born. And you notice when you're a child, a very young child, before those conditionings are molded, you have no filter. Like, kids say the darndest things, right? They're not worried about your feelings or what they're saying or what they're expressing, because they are just genuine to who they are and what they believe and what they see it and say it how they say it how they see it.
Blech.
And then
Anything. Why is she so wrinkly? Why
why
are
and
they
then
so
your parents
short?
are like,
What
and
is
your
that
parents are like,
thing?
don't talk like that, and like, you have some manners, or watch what you say. And then you get into, and that creates the first mask of, don't express your truth. No, you can't say that, and then moving from there, you get asked as a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's simply things like, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a teacher, I want to be anything in the world. And immediately again, you have society going, well, you can't be that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'll never be that. Or parents, instead of encouraging those thoughts, are suppressing them immediately with more society standard impressions.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we go into things like lineage. So, I need to be a doctor because my dad and my grandpa are a doctor. I need to be a teacher because my mom and my aunt are a teacher. I need to be, instead of I need to be what I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll get love because of that. I will find love from the external world because I'm being a good boy or a girl, because I'm listening to what I'm told to do. Yeah.
So, and that's now creating the mask of limitation. So we have the mask initially from speaking our truth. We've now got another mask embedded into our conditioning on who we can be and what we can do. And now moving forward from that, we get into things like high school and different places like that, where now it's all about, we've all been there. When you go to high school, nobody bases popularity on who you are as a person. It's what brand is your backpack? What brand are the clothes you're wearing? Do you get money for the cafeteria? Like that, it's this crazy way of conditioning and the way we raised past generations, where the attention wasn't paid to genuine connections between beings, but more on what do you have and what do I have, and then we're creating that mask of that I'm not good enough, and these crazy expectations that are absolutely unattainable that we've embedded and imprinted in our children just by what they watch on television, what they're listening to, who they're surrounding themselves with. And most importantly, one of the biggest things for me and that I work with my clients is trauma. So understanding, everyone's got trauma and it's no different. Everyone's trauma is trauma. The circumstance or experience is different, but the effect of the trauma itself on the body is not. And understanding that what happens as well as we go through these traumas, where say we had a mother and she was broken, right? A broken being cannot raise a whole being. And understanding that we're all a little broken and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's who we are and it creates the masterpiece of our being and our imprint. But starting to learn, like, you get raised in a family filled with domestic violence. Well, chances are if you turn the tables on that parent was raised in a family of domestic violence, or your mother's not really nurturing because when she was raised, she was never taught to be loved and how to love. Yeah. How you can't love and be loved if you don't have ever experienced the circumstance or itself on being loved. You can't not, some people are very structured and like strict and suppressive, especially to like metaphysical realms, because their upbringing was very religious, or it was very, all the stories are going to be different. And as an adult, to deal with that trauma and to really break the pattern of considering and of defining yourself as a product of your childhood is understanding that only you hold what's true to you. Anything else in your experience, circumstance, or journey can be released and thanked.
Anything. Absolutely anything. Have you ever come across a moment where somebody couldn't, with practice, time, and dedication, overcome something?
Oh, absolutely. Because and at that point, that's when you have to come in with a really harsh reality. Sorry, it trips me out because your screen is still frozen.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Just quick technical check from everybody else. Is my screen still frozen?
Maybe it's
somebody in the comments. Somebody who's watching.
Do I have to push a button?
So you can hear me, but you can't. I'm frozen.
Oh, I can hear you, but I can't see you. So if I accidentally interrupt you,
okay.
Because I don't see when you're.
I don't know if there's anything I can do to fix that, but hopefully. Oh no, I don't want to kick you out.
I wonder if I hop off and back on.
That might. Yes, Lisa. Yes, what? Yes, I'm frozen, or yes, you can see me.
Maybe you're only frozen to me.
Sorry, guys.
Oh well.
We got a bunch of yeses.
So they can see you.
I'm just very present today. Yes, but I look pretty. Okay, so yes, I'm frozen. But
you are frozen to everyone?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. No offense, but I'm like, okay, good. So it's not me just blowing up technology as usual.
No, I'm frozen.
So when we do come across circumstance or situations with people that aren't able to get past the trauma, there's several things that you really struggle with as a coach, is because you're like, well, the universe has no filter, and if we can't get past this trauma, and if we stay tracked experiences and circumstances. Oh, there you are, kind of. Oh, there you are. You're mute.
Great.
So it's a surprise. You're like, I didn't even know. So what's happening is when we can't move past that trauma, is we're actually continuing to carry. First of all, we're doing three things. We're continuing to carry baggage that is draining our source energy in holding on to this trauma in our subconscious. If we want to believe it's there or not, our storage bank is just carrying it. And then our conscious mind is trying to project this new life. But it's like a contradiction, because the still trying to hold on to this trauma it believes that it needs, yet the other half is trying to create a new reality. And it's not allowing our consciousness to take the full potential that we have in order to rewrite our story. Also from there, what we're doing is we're dwelling. Okay, when it hurts, we carry it, right? And when it hurts, we're creating a negative perception. And what we're actually doing is we're projecting that vibration, and the universe can only match the frequency that we project. Okay, it doesn't matter if you want it or don't want it, if it's good for you, if it's bad for you. Our wishes are your command, right? What you set your concentration and your energy on is what you're receiving back, no matter what. So when we complain and we dwell and we pity, we're actually telling the universe we want more of all those circumstances. The reoccurring shitty boyfriend, the reoccurring shitty job, the neglect, the unappreciation, the feeling of being lost and detached from oneself is a constant reoccurrence because we're not willing to let go of the trauma. Another angle of that is what happens is, and I've seen it many times, is we become accustomed to the mask we wear that has created the being of trauma. And we're actually afraid to get well. We're actually afraid to drop that baggage, because the only person we know is the one with the trauma, the one with the baggage, the one with the illness. And who will we be if we no longer have it?
And it doesn't matter if that person is better, shinier, like more enlightened, whatever. It's just like,
why?
we don't know what it'll look like, so it becomes scary and something we don't necessarily want to engage with, right?
And what happens from there is the ego steps in with fear and self-doubt to keep us safe.
Yeah.
Because the moment the ego registers something of the unknown, it sinks fear and self-doubt into you so that you don't go down the path. Because it doesn't know what it is. So if it keeps you safe, the mechanism keeps you safe by not going down that path of the unknown, then in its mind, it's done its job.
Right.
If that. Right.
Yeah, which is relevant when there's tigers chasing and you want to avoid areas where tigers live, but not relevant when you were just raised in a family that didn't understand love, and you're now in a situation where people are loving, but you can't quite feel it, so you move away from that, something like that.
Because you're not having the ability to process it because you've never experienced it. Yeah. And the thing is about emotions is how our emotions actually work is our emotional reaction was programmed in us when we were children. And what I mean by that, and you're like, well, what do you mean? Like when I was 2 having a tantrum, that's now my emotional reaction? Pretty much. So the moment you're conscious to process circumstance, your first reaction to an emotion, so if we're in a situation of joy and we express joy, our emotional archive will bank that. Okay, this experience happened, it created joy. Our first experience with fear, whatever your reaction was, our emotional archive banks that. Sadness and every emotion, like we could be here all day, but each emotional experience. Now, as adults, when we come across a moment of fear, our brain is smart and it automatically goes to the archive, finds the emotion or finds the feeling of fear, and gives you the automatic reaction that you had for the very first time with an association with a fearful circumstance, with a joyful circumstance, with a sad circumstance. And what happens is, without us even recognizing it, our reactions are based on past experiences. Our mind will only react based on how it's reacted before.
How from your understanding, how do we shift that? How do we start changing that? Because I know I've seen it shift. Go ahead.
How we go from right brain to left brain really is when we become more present. What happens is we all live in autopilot because we got bills to pay. We've got, people to take care of. We've got society's guidelines to what our lives are actually for. Get up, eat, work, pay bills, sleep, and that's so sad, but it's really a reality. And what happens is when we come out of autopilot, when we allow ourselves to be present in the moment, when we're taking time to check in with that inner dialogue, and we start to appreciate our energy. When we realize that at an atomic level, you're not even a body, you are on an atomic level and under a microscope, nothing but energy, we recognize how important that energy is and that it's magnetic and energy can never be destroyed. And when we create that ability to go, is my energy vibration going to be negative? Is it going to be positive? Oh, I have the ability to control how that energy is going to work, how it's going to flow. And we become present, we come across circumstances, and instead of immediately becoming reactive, which we all are, we start to observe because we treasure what we have. And I'm not going to give energy away for no reason. And what happens is now, as we start to realize, and when we are being present to how we're reacting, and we are being present to how we're thinking, we take time when we come across a circumstance on how am I going to deal with it? Will what I react to today affect me tomorrow? How many times do we freak right out and then 2 days later we forgive that person anyway? Or how many situations do we lose it, or we get upset about, or we blame our emotions on other people's actions, and we move forward. So the moment we recognize, no matter what you say to me, you don't put the feeling in my body. If you call me a name, if you're positive, if you're supportive, if you're negative, you do not put the vibration in my body. I take that word, translate it myself, and tell the body how it's going to feel by what you've said.
And a really quick example of that is like anybody who's been called like attractive or beautiful or handsome and not been able to feel it, right? That's a really great example of like the words are coming at you, but you're not willing to accept it. And often we're way more willing to accept negative sort of attributes than we are positive attributes.
100%. Like if I asked you right now, especially someone that hasn't done self-discovery, name 5 things that you don't like about yourself, you would have 25. I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. If I said name 5 things you love about yourself, you'd be like, I had no idea. I couldn't listen. And even in that moment of what, I'm not asking you what you don't like. As soon as I ask you what I like about you, or sorry, what you like about yourself, not only can you not probably come up with it, but you're already redirected to what you don't.
Right, it's all automatically. Yeah, you guys, anybody who's
it.
watching this live or in the replay, like feel free to do that exercise really quickly right now in the chat comments, like positive things, negative things. Just see what that feels like for you in your body and in the experience. Can you come up with 5 positive things you like about yourself?
And that's just the simple check in there to see how connected you are with your emotional energy. And back to the topic on how do we change the brain on that is when we become more present and we become more in control and in tune with our body and with our words. Every word is a vibration, and understanding 2 things. I decide how my outer environment makes me feel. And if I don't like the feeling, I don't need to hold it. So just because you say I can't, I won't, I'm unable, you know what I mean, doesn't mean it's true to me. And chances are that's a mirror of your inner insecurities and what you need to work on. And what happens is as you grow through your own discovery and acceptance, when people throw this shit at you, it no longer bothers you. 5 years ago, that would demobilize me. And I'd be like, oh, I'm shutting my business down. Like somebody told me I can't do this. Who am I to be motivating women? Who am I to be writing books? Who am I,
Yeah.
And now I go, I send you love and light. I really hope you take what you've expressed to me as a mirror because how we treat others is actually an inner reflection of how we treat ourselves. And understanding that those people actually are probably threatened by you. And understanding that it doesn't matter what they say, what other people say isn't your business. What other people say is their business because it's the baggage they still carry. And redirecting that in the sense of, now, how do we change our reaction? Is understanding you ask yourself two questions. We don't react, we detach and observe. A, am I allowing whatever the circumstance or experience to affect me? No? Okay, well, it's already over because I haven't allowed it to affect me. Second, okay, it's still kind of affecting me. How am I going to react to it? Three things. Is this worth my energy? Okay. Is this going to affect me tomorrow? Is this going to affect me 6 months from now? Is this going to affect me a year from now? Why am I wasting the energy that I'm trying to intentionally project to create my best life? Why am I taking from that bucket? And moving on. Now, there's certain circumstances like grief, loss, where we do obviously need to process. But again, someone passes, detach, observe.
Right.
And my biggest advice with grief, I lost my dad. I lived with a single parent, and I actually lost my dad at 16 of a massive heart attack. And I carried that trauma up until about 2 years ago, until it changed the perception. When we change the perception of an emotion or reaction, we change the outcome. We have been programmed that grief is sad, it's sorrow, it's hurt. Am I saying that a loss of a loved one is not sad, it's not sorrow, it's not hurt? Absolutely not. Am I telling you how to grieve? Absolutely not. But through my personal experience, when we detach and observe, because what happens with grief, especially, and trauma, is it's why did this person pass, or why did this happen to me, and it's all the whys and the negative part of it. And what about detaching, observing, and redirecting in a sense of, I'm so grateful because in this current reality and lifetime, I had the experience with this being. This being brought me joy because this being taught me this. I'm so grateful because of this imprint. I'm going to carry this in my life journey. And then redirecting to, this loss has taught me to be more grateful, to be more present, to realize tomorrow's not promised. And for many years, my dad's death date was a traumatic day. Like, lock the doors, turn the TV off, I'm fucking crying all day, I'm smashing things, and I'm, that's how we deal with grief. Yeah. And what happened is last year I decided I'm no longer going. I went home to my dad's, or we go to their memorials, and we're like, when we're here, we can't be happy. We can't be happy to be at a memorial, like a grave site. Like, we're sad, we're traumatized. And the last time I went, I didn't cry. And I was like, and then you're almost like, ego's like trying to cry because you're like, I should be crying right now. Why am I not crying? And understanding that when you really evolve vibrationally, each to their own view, is you understand that they're not gone. They've transitioned, and you can celebrate them. Lots of people believe they can only mourn when they're there, or talk to them when they're there, and accepting that energy is forever. It can never be destroyed, and learning a new way to deal with grief in the sense that we can grieve anywhere. You don't have to be in a specific, that actually means nothing. It's a physical place. Yeah. And emotionally and vibrationally, you can express those energies anywhere. And then I would start, after I left there, I really reflected, and I said, you know what, on his death date, I'm no longer even acknowledging it. And that might sound really harsh and abrupt, but if it was that day, and I'm not writing it on the calendar anymore, I wrote it on the calendar for 16 years. I'm not declaring it as my truth that, oh, this is a day to be sad. I'm actually going to start circling his birthday.
To celebrate his life and the fact that he was born and that you were a result of that. And
correct. So change, and you're probably like, well, what's the moral of the story? Well, the moral of the story here with grief is, when we change the perception, we change the reality. We change the emotional association. We change the feeling. It allows us to grow. Okay. And taking the most negative thing in the world, like grief or trauma, and understanding that even from the darkest place, you can be the light. You don't, when we accept that we're all in a tunnel and it's dark and we're all trying, the saying, the light at the end of the tunnel, and you can never get to it. And what we need to accept, and this is like the analogy I came up with when working with women in big groups, is what I came to realize is you are the light. And what we need to accept is through self-discovery and inner work is no longer chase the light at the end of the tunnel, but become the light that's in the tunnel. And instead of trying to obtain a light at the end, the whole tunnel is lit up. The moment you seek that inner validation and you turn that light on, you become the light. And you're no longer in the dark at all. Seeking a validation or an expectation that's unattainable, you'll never get to the light at the end of the tunnel because it doesn't exist. You must become the light in the tunnel.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. I got goosebumps all over my body.
Oh, that's good. That means
Thank you.
needed to hear that.
It's a great, it's a wonderful metaphor.
To answer your question, because I'm the worst when I get asked a question, I'm like, here's 19 answers.
I love it.
In straight and narrow of it is, in order to create a new reaction, you must detach and observe. Every time you feel like you're about to explode in whatever emotional aspect of the circumstance that may be, you must detach, observe, and then react. Because I'm going to tell you, when you, even if that's 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 5 days, if you detach before you react, you're probably not going to say or behave 90% the same way you would if you were to react instantly.
Of course.
And you're probably going to be able to become more successful more easily and effortlessly because you're not draining the bucket.
Yeah.
Why drain the bucket that you're using to create an intentional reality through manifestation and co-creating with the universe if you're draining it by freaking out or reacting or and reminding yourself only you control how a word makes you feel. Words mean different things in so many different languages and to so many different people. So that's where you can identify that a word is an emotion, or a word creates an emotional feeling and a vibration, but only you just define what that feeling is.
Mm-hmm.
Just because somebody said it something hurtful doesn't mean it needs to be hurtful to you.
Mm-hmm.
You choose.
Yeah. My shields say, right? It's like,
absolutely,
that's not allowed in here. You can say all you want, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's not
and instead of making it look like a shield, the greatest tool that I give my clients is you visualize a mirror, because it also makes you not as angry with the other person. So there's two things that happen. They say something hurtful. It creates negative feelings in the body, and you want to hurt them back. And none of this is a good cycle. Like, none of this is benefiting you in any way. And what you need to accept is the kill it with kindness, but not even the kill it with kindness, but kill it with perception. Understand and visualize that mirror, that this doesn't hurt me. And I'm not even angry because clearly this hasn't dealt with any of her baggage.
Yeah. Wow.
And guess what? It's not my business, because I've done the inner work. And I don't have baggage to carry. I send you love. I hope you find the place where you can grow to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if it does personally, like, even if we do feel impacted, then like still creating that detach and observe space is like the way through, right?
Because it's going to allow you to process and dump it.
Yeah.
So if you can't, at first, obviously it sounds easier than it's done, and in time, at first it's going to affect you. So if you're new to my program, or you're new to my way of perception, I would start you off with, okay, so it's impacted you. I want you to detach and observe. Okay, once you've observed, you're probably like, man, that doesn't actually bother me. You can dump it.
Right.
And in time of dumping and observing, you'll start to just shield it. You'll start to mirror it. And you'll look at it from more of a healing point of view of, you really need, like, I wish you all the best. I hope you find the opportunity in your journey to grow like I have. Because wow, girl, it'll change your life. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
community over competition. And we live, especially with women, in such a perception of comparative and competitive behaviors.
Yeah.
And the thing is we're really seeking a validation and an expectation that's false. You'll never be her. Your
Hmm.
success will never be the same as hers. Your reality will never be the same as hers because you're unique to you and your energy vibration is totally different. So
Hmm.
if you make a vision board and all her stuff is on your vision board, you'll never attract that. You may attract an alternative version of that that suits your unique vibration and DNA, but
Hmm.
you'll never attract that. So you're really implementing yourself to do everything the hard way instead of going, this is what I love, this is what I truly desire, this is how it's going to make me feel, and really set an intention true to who you are and what your truth is.
Hmm. Wow. So you mentioned a couple times your work with people. You got a self love renovation master
Okay,
class. Can you tell me a little bit about
I
that?
have I have it all started with the book series.
Okay,
So I'm just like,
do
this is
it.
the book,
Let me see.
which the lighting's probably not.
Oh yeah, self love renovation.
Okay,
I love
so
your
the
logo.
book,
It's so pretty.
everyone was like, write a novel, and I'm a tree killer. I'm really sorry, but I am killing trees. Okay, that's my fault because I'm vibrational, right? And everything I do is based on an intentional projection. And if I was to write a novel or an ebook, you wouldn't be able to put your energetic imprint into the universe by creating something tangible that you write in. So my workbook was created to teach because I did workshops about affirmations, about the law of attraction, about self-compassion, self-acceptance and self-love and inner discovery. And I was like, my girlfriend was like, why don't you put it all in a book? And I was like, that's great, but I want them to be able to implement it. I went to many workshops where they would overwhelm you with these downloads of knowledge, but
Yeah.
never give you an implementation to actually put it into effect in your daily life.
Yeah.
So I made the book in order for people to learn, implement, learn about the real true vibration of gratitude. But now let's do a 30-day challenge. How can you know, break a habit in 21 days, but create a lifestyle? As much as the habits need to be broken, there needs to be a replacement.
Yeah.
We're going to get rid of these coping mechanisms, but we need a new tool to replace that coping mechanism. And we need to reprogram how we're projecting ourselves daily and presently while we create our reality of tomorrow. So I had written book one, which was light to get just people into it. And then book two is like a slap in the face of like, here's your trauma, here's your childhood, this is what up, and this is how you're going to get untwisted, untwined into the beautiful soul you are and realigned with your present journey in order to move forward without all this baggage that you don't need. And from there, book three was a journal prompt because I was telling people to journal, and they're like, Candice, we don't know what to journal about. We sit there in front of a blank piece of paper, nothing comes out, like we're
Right.
not sure.
Right.
So I made 200 journal prompts where it was like, we're getting deep. Like, who
200
are
journal
you in a
prompts.
relationship? Who's your biggest role model? What was your biggest trauma? What do you love? What do you don't love? And what that also allows is you start to break down conditionings by answering these questions, because you're like, oh shit, like I don't love any of that, but I've been facilitating all that for years. Or I actually really love these things and I've never even had the ability to try them. And from there, I was doing workshops all the time that were associated with the foundation of my books. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to build a masterclass, because what happened was a lot of women that I know are moms, or they couldn't make it. Or the other thing was too, is they'd come for the full day and then they'd leave it.
Hmm.
They wouldn't really process it. So what the masterclass is, it's 4 hours of recorded videos. And it really goes through like, who are you? Love yourself. She's beautiful. No more comparing and competing. Well, what do we react to? How are we especially working with entrepreneurs or women that want to really, not do that 9 to 5 and turn their passion into their purpose, and identifying that, self-doubt creates mountains.
Creates
And
what? Sorry?
creates mountains.
Mountains. Oh.
Self-doubt creates mountains,
Yeah.
and confidence can be learned.
Right.
People go, oh, she's so confident on them. Absolutely, you could be like that. When we take down the mountains with our self-worth, we become confident. Yeah. And the masterclass is recorded. It's a 100-page PDF that you can print. And then it's 4 4-hour videos. And then the manual has like a bunch of information. And then you get put into a private Facebook group. And from there, you have the ability to ask me any questions that you come across, share aha moments in the community. And if instead of booking private sessions with me, if you have a question, you can just email me, and I support you along the journey of it. And it was just a way for women to do it at their own pace, watch an hour video. And it was allowing, like, I'm visual, where some people are audio and some people like to read. Like, I'm like ADHD. I was lucky I made it through writing my book. So it gives them the opportunity. They can watch the video, they can listen to the video, and they have unlimited access to the masterclass for life. Like, they get to stay in that group as long as they want. So they can rewatch, because they can't download the videos to keep. So they just have access to rewatch them for as long as they'd like. And I'm actually just in the middle of having a few tweaks done to the masterclass and some custom meditations being made by a good friend of mine for the women to be able to implement the visualization exercises that I have created as well audioly, like on audio. So those should be up in the next couple of weeks. There were just, my brain is, as a high vibrational being, I get downloads so often that I'm like constantly changing certain things to be better, to help more, where I'm like, oh, this really helped me. Okay, now I want to add it. And my friends are like, you need to split these up. Like, you can sell these all separate. And I'm like, no, I just want to give them everything. And but that's just who I am, and that everything's the way it's meant to be. So that's fantastic. And
it's beautiful. I love encountering people who are teaching who are like, we want to give you everything, all the most powerful tools, as simply as possible. As it's like, we're going to transform your life in this, whatever, this 4-hour series. You can take as long as you want to do with it. That sounds great. You mentioned some often women. I would imagine that you work predominantly with women, but would men also benefit from doing this course?
They could. I do work predominantly with women. The foundations of self-love renovation itself are absolutely generic, right? Energetically as beings, your results are going to be the same. The only thing is I felt there was really an epidemic with women not receiving the acceptance and the support they needed to grow into their true selves. So I did predominantly base it towards women. So it is themed in like pink and gold, and it is extremely girly. I've had many people ask me, like, are you ever going to make a men's version? And I'm like, well, really all I would do is change it to blue. Like, the content itself is absolutely the same. So absolutely, it's not that I wouldn't support that, and I'm not trying to be like a man hater and be like, no men allowed. But with the masterclass, I don't know, I created it so that no offense to men, but 99.9% of trauma in women is associated with a male figure. If it's a parent, if it's a family member, if it's someone in school, if it's a relationship, it's just the reality that we live in today, that a lot of that trauma is from males. Somewhere in their life, there's been an experience or an imprint from a male figure in their life that created trauma. So the group was made for a safe space for women without judgment to be able to express that trauma. Because what happened for me was, when I was seeking, long before my creation of self-love renovation, but support and help with my trauma that was male figure based, there were men there.
Which makes it feel like,
so they're like, I'm not fucking talking about this, because I don't want to make this guy feel uncomfortable. And we again put the mask back on. So I was creating a space where all masks could come off, and without judgment, you let you do you, and you express whatever experience that has come up for you, and we're going to support and nurture that so that you can shed it, dump it, and move forward into more of the amazing being you are, without fear, without self-doubt, without insecurities of judgment or issues with worth, and really allow them to become exactly who they are without fear of judgment.
Wow. Thank you so much for creating that container, something that you wanted for yourself and that is now serving, hundreds of women to be in a place of coming back to their wholeness. That's so
Absolutely.
beautiful and so needed.
Yeah, and that's why I created the private Facebook group. So we have 3,500 women now, and it's all women. And I do weekly live videos just about, because, it's about accessibility too. And, I know 5 years ago, there's certain guidance and support I would have died for that I couldn't afford. Like that at this time, sometimes it's just not in our means at the time. And if we could have that, bit of support to recognize where we're stuck and what we're doing, then it really creates that ability to prosper. And that in the woman empowerment group, it's free on Facebook, and it just allows you to watch my live videos, which I hadn't done some for the last little bit, but I usually go one. There's about 35 videos on there, and what happens is it's just 30 minutes with me. To give those women those aha moments in the privacy of their own home, and allow them to go, holy, like that's me, with no pressure, with no issue, and if it's something that they find beneficial, they stay. If they believe that they are from it, they can add them, and just allowing that community to support each other without judgment, and help create that lifestyle with our inner dialogue, create that ability to change the thought pattern, to change the emotional projection, and really allow us to easily and effortlessly begin in a world of chaos to be more present in creating a reality of tomorrow, and understanding believed in our and be sitting here right now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think that is a wonderful place to sort of wrap this up today. Being in that place of being our own best friend and believing in ourselves, and that there is support in that journey. It seems like a completely unreasonable experience within, somebody's, that you're here to offer that guidance and that support. And we'll link to your open Facebook group as well as the course that you're offering, the masterclass that we talked about, in the links to this interview. Yeah. Is there any last thoughts that you want to wrap up today?
I just want to thank you very much for having me. I'm absolutely grateful for being here and sharing my experience and my personal view on self-love with you today. And honestly, my biggest, strongest thing I'm going to tell you is love yourself first, and the rest will come.
You got it.
Honestly, if we start there, that's where we start.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Well,
wonderful.
thank you very much.
Oh, so grateful. And I'd love to have you on again in the future. Super wonderful. And glad to have you as part of the community. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk to you guys later.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everybody who's been here and watching the live. We go live on Tuesdays and Thursdays with interviews and product demos for conscious businesses, conscious service providers, people who are here holding space for a more powerful, more beautiful, more loving, more enlightened world. And it's been absolutely wonderful to have Candice Bell on with us today. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.